Every time we have a discussion about Nintendo maybe announcing something at the Game Awards, there are always those that say Nintendo does not make announcements at the Game Awards, don't expect anything. Except this is not true. There's a very consistent track record of Nintendo making announcements at the Game Awards. Before Nintendo Switch even came out, there were multiple years that we saw Breath of the Wild at the Game Awards. And then in the launch year, Game Awards 2017, we saw the Champions Ballad DLC for Breath of the Wild. We also saw the announcements for Bayonetta's 1, 2, and 3 at the show. In 2018, we saw Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 coming to Switch, as well as Joker coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. In 2019, we saw a Normal Heroes 3 trailer, and also Bravely Default 2, a Nintendo-published title. In 2020, they showed off Sephiroth coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and then in 2021, we saw nothing. However, in 2022, we got Fire Emblem Engage DLC and Bayonetta Origins coming out a few short months later. And then in 2023, there was nothing specifically at the show beyond just some commercials. However, when the show started, Nintendo made sure to announce 3 N64 games coming to Nintendo Switch Online. So very consistently, there has been some sort of important Nintendo announcement during the Game Awards show. There is a possibility there might be nothing, but odds are there will be something, which certainly, as you can probably tell by the title, has a lot to do with what we're getting into today on AndresRestart. Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and yes, today we are talking about how Metroid Prime 4 Beyond news just got more likely at Game Awards 2024. And actually, last week I already made a video discussing the possibility for us seeing both Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and maybe Metroid Prime 2 Remastered at Game Awards 2024. So if you're more interested in my thoughts behind both of those, check out that video. This video we're going to be focusing on some additional information that's supporting the idea of us seeing Metroid Prime 4, and then I'll be diving into some potential implications as well. But before going further, let me take this moment to ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and if you're unsure, watch through this video and then consider subscribing and hitting that bell. So there are two different things that have happened recently that are suggesting Metroid Prime 4 has a better chance to have some sort of news at the show compared to last week. One of them is that Metroid Prime 4 was just announced to be one of the most anticipated game nominations. And I think this is actually a pretty big deal. So when I put out that video last week, not everyone wanted to agree that Metroid made sense to be at the Game Awards, and I'm not saying it's a 100% certainty, I simply think it makes sense, which is why we've had the discussion. But something that was impacting my confidence in Metroid maybe showing up at the Game Awards was if Metroid Prime 4 would be up for most anticipated game. Because if it's not even up for most anticipated game, then there may not even be a window of opportunity where mentioning Metroid makes as much sense. And there does appear to be a correlation where we have seen some games that have a nomination where the future of the series has some sort of update. It's not all the time, it's sometimes. But with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond being up for most anticipated game, not that I expect it to win, because there is Grand Theft Auto 6 and that's just a much wider appealing game. But simply by being nominated, I think it makes sense for Metroid to have the spotlight at some point during the show, and they may very well have a segment where they make an announcement or two relevant to Metroid. Now, something else relevant to this particular bit of news here on it being a nomination. In last week's video, I mentioned how Jeff Keighley may have been teasing something related to Metroid Prime 4 at the Game Awards. And that might simply have been it being up for most anticipated game, not necessarily an announcement. Of course, it could also be both. There's nothing to say it can't be both, and there's nothing to say that it was either. It could have just been a coincidence. It's just something that I think is worth mentioning. Now, the other bit of news that I would say is actually probably even more significant than Metroid Prime 4 being announced as one of the most anticipated game nominations is that Nintendo finally has updated their official Metroid website. You see here Metroid Prime Remastered, Metroid Dread. These are the modern Metroid games on Switch. But oh wait, there's another one. Coming soon, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Embark on a new mission coming to Nintendo Switch in 2025. Well, that's cool. Look how the learn more just kind of moves around as you move around the mouse. It's interactive. Anyways, this isn't any sort of crazy news in terms of us learning more about Metroid Prime 4 on the website. There's nothing new here, except for the fact that Metroid Prime 4 is now on the website. This is big. They just updated this. We noticed this yesterday, November 19th. The day after, Metroid Prime 4 was just announced to be one of the nominations for most anticipated game at the award show. And as I said already, in last week's video I mentioned a variety of reasons why I think Metroid makes a lot of sense at the show. But one of the big reasons is that Nintendo has not announced Switch 2 yet. Now, I've theorized that Prime 4 will be a cross-generation title of some kind, but even if it isn't, one thing we know about Prime 4 for sure is that it is coming out next year. It is going to be one of the last final big Switch games. And considering the audience of the Game Awards, and the history of Nintendo announcements at the Game Awards, usually they're not going to tell us about a brand new game. It's happened, but most of the time it's more so an update on a game we already know about. And we've known about Prime 4 for some time, and we've already gotten footage on it from a June Direct, so it is pretty conceivable for us to get another update at the show. And yes, I also think there's a possibility that they may not just show just a little bit more footage of Prime 4, but also make mention of maybe a Metroid Prime 2 Remastered coming out early next year. And some might be asking, well, what about Metroid Prime 3? Well, I talked a little bit about that in last week's video, so you can check that out. But I do think Prime 3 will come eventually down the road, but there are some other considerations. Now, what might we see of this Metroid Prime 4 look at the show? I'm not expecting a big, giant 3.5-minute trailer. I'm not even expecting something as significant as the first Metroid Prime trailer, which was less than 2 minutes of gameplay. Most announcements at the Game Awards are pretty concise, they're quick, so they have to fit in a lot of different announcements with all the different things they need to talk about during a relatively short amount of time, a few hours. So everything is short. I'll be happy with just 30 seconds of footage or 60 seconds of footage. And the great news about that is if they keep it relatively short, that also gives them still some time to make another announcement like maybe Metroid Prime 2. Now, with the footage, I'm sure there's going to be a lot for us to analyze and theorize about the game, the lore, the gameplay, all that stuff. What they'll actually put in the trailer, I'm unsure. There is a variety of things they could potentially show. We could get a little bit more insight into what exactly is going on with Sylix. Perhaps we'll get some more hints about his backstory, perhaps. That will fuel definitely more theories on who exactly he is. We also could possibly get our first look at Ridley in this game. We don't know if Ridley will be in the game, but given that Ridley is essentially like the Bowser or the Ganondorf of the Metroid series, and this is kind of like a resurgence or revival of the Metroid Prime series, it at least seems like Ridley has a really good chance to show up at some point in the game, and his presence would be a very exciting thing to show off. But then there are other possibilities. Perhaps we could see a living Chozo, which we haven't seen in the Metroid Prime games, just the 2D Metroid games. That would be interesting. Or maybe they focus less on really cool characters and more so on just some good gameplay. Perhaps other environments, maybe we see more of that forest area or something else we haven't seen at all yet. Maybe they start to show off why Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is a bit different from prior Metroid games. We start to see some interesting gameplay stuff that's very different, or perhaps they show how Metroid Prime 4 Beyond has modernized the formula somewhat here. I think it's worth noting that if this game is going to be shown off surrounded by a whole bunch of other AAA games that have very modern standards, perhaps they may want to show how Metroid Prime 4 is also modern as well. And I mean from a gameplay perspective here, to be clear. Like, what if we see more interactions with Samus and her grapple beam, or her running on walls, or just being more agile while still maintaining that first-person perspective? There's a variety of possibilities. And we already know the game's coming out in 2025, so I'm not sure they'll tell us more than that in terms of release timing. They might, perhaps they may want to give us like a release window, and that alone could be very exciting. Like, imagine they say summer 2025. That would spur a lot of conversation, because a lot of us think that Prime 4 might be a cross-gen title. And I think Prime 4 probably won't be the day one launch title for Switch 2, but I do think it could be coming out relatively early on. So if Nintendo says summer 2025, That's going to have a lot of people thinking, oh, could Switch 2 be out by summer 2025? And of course, some people who don't believe Prime 4 is going to be a cross-gen title will think that Switch 2 is coming out after summer 2025. But there's going to be that conversation. Without even having to mention Switch 2, just saying summer 2025 with Metroid Prime 4, it's going to create conversation that goes beyond just Metroid. Now, I will also say there is a possibility that Nintendo could make a pretty big announcement in December, somewhat similar to what they talked about this month, while they put something out on Twitter announcing something that's about Switch 2, except this time they say Metroid Prime 4 Beyond will be coming out for both Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2, but they'll probably say the successor to Nintendo Switch, because we assume that they will not have officially revealed the Switch 2 by this point in time. Nintendo could go big by doing something like that. They probably won't, because that's something they would more likely announce maybe at a shareholders meeting, if not just when they show off the console. So I would say more likely we'll be lucky if we get just like a season or some sort of window of time beyond just 2025. But anyways, it is interesting that Metroid Prime 4 has been nominated for the Game Awards, and in the same week, they've updated the Metroid website to have Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and it does have me wondering if there's some prep work being done where we see a whole bunch of new details on the website having to do with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which could be a really good time. There could be a lot more material for us to really dissect and analyze and see what Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is all about. So I'm starting to feel more confident in this idea of Metroid being at the show. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.